At 2:20 in the morning on June 29, 2017, a single gunshot shattered the silence in a quiet Palm Beach County home. 33-year-old Makeva Jenkins, pregnant and sleeping peacefully in her bedroom, would never wake up. But this wasn't a random home invasion or a burglary gone wrong. This was murder. Calculated, paid for, and orchestrated by the one person who should have protected her most. The man lying beside her in bed, her own husband, had hired someone to pull the trigger. West of Lantana, in the sprawling suburbs of Palm Beach County, Florida, modest homes line tree-shaded streets where families raise their children and build their dreams. It's the kind of neighborhood where people know their neighbors, where children play outside until dark, and where violent crime feels like something that happens to other people in other places. But on this particular morning, that sense of security would be forever shattered in one house on one street, where evil had taken root in the most unlikely of places. Makeva Jenkins was living what many would consider the American dream. At 33, she was the devoted mother of 3 children, trying to build a stable life for her family. She had recently discovered she was pregnant again, adding another layer of joy and responsibility to her world. To those who knew her, Makeva was a woman who put her family first, who worked hard to provide for her children, and who trusted in the bonds of marriage and family. She had no way of knowing that her husband had already decided she was worth more dead than alive. From the outside, Euri and Makeva Jenkins appeared to be just another married couple navigating the challenges of family life. But beneath the surface, something dark was brewing. While Makeva focused on caring for their children and managing their household, Euri had discovered something that would prove irresistible to his calculating mind. His wife's life insurance policy, $500,000. It was a sum that would change everything, transforming a husband into a killer and a marriage into a murder plot. The pieces of Makeva's murder began falling into place weeks before that fatal night. Euri Jenkins needed more than just motivation. He needed connections, people willing to cross the line from legal to lethal. Enter Dametri Dale, a man who would become the crucial link between a husband's deadly intentions and the gunman willing to carry them out. Dale introduced Euri to Joevan Joseph, and with that introduction, Makeva Jenkins's fate was sealed. The triangle of conspiracy was complete: the husband who wanted his wife dead, the middleman who made the connection, and the shooter who would pull the trigger. On that Thursday evening, the final preparations were made. Prosecutors would later allege that Euri Jenkins handed over $1,500 in cash and a silver-colored revolver to Joevan Joseph. It was payment for murder, the price tag Euri had placed on his wife's life. As Makeva settled into bed that night, exhausted from another day of caring for their children, she had no idea that her husband was orchestrating her death. The weapon was in the killer's hands. The money had changed ownership, and the countdown to murder had begun. As the clock approached 2:20 a.m., Joevan Joseph made his way through the darkened house. The children were asleep, one downstairs on the patio, another in a playpen nearby. Makeva lay sleeping in her bedroom, pregnant and vulnerable. According to testimony that would later emerge in court, Joseph moved through the house with deadly purpose. Euri Jenkins, who should have been protecting his family, instead watched as his hired killer approached the bedroom where his wife lay sleeping, completely unaware that her final moments were at hand. In a matter of seconds, everything changed forever. Joevan Joseph would later testify that he entered the bedroom where Makeva Jenkins lay sleeping and shot her in the head. One bullet ended her life, ended her dreams, ended her future with her children. The pregnant mother who had gone to sleep thinking about tomorrow would never see another sunrise. The gunshot that rang through the house at 2:20 a.m. didn't just kill Makeva Jenkins. It orphaned 3 children and revealed the true nature of the man they called father. What happened next would become one of the most damning pieces of evidence against Euri Jenkins. According to prosecutors, after Joevan Joseph fired the fatal shot, he ran from the bedroom and literally jumped over Euri Jenkins on his way out of the house. And Euri did nothing. A gunshot had just rung out in his wife's bedroom. His children were in the house. His pregnant wife was dying. And he did absolutely nothing. No attempt to chase the intruder. No rush to help his wife. No frantic call to 911. Just cold, calculated inaction that spoke volumes about his involvement in the crime. When emergency responders arrived at the Jenkins home that morning, they found a scene that would haunt them forever. Makeva Jenkins lay dead in her bedroom, the victim of a single gunshot wound to the head. But as detectives began processing the scene, inconsistencies in Euri's story started to emerge. His version of events, a mysterious intruder who had somehow entered their home and killed his wife, didn't align with the evidence they were uncovering. The investigation was just beginning, but already suspicion was turning toward the grieving widower. As investigators delved deeper into the Jenkins lives, they made a discovery that would prove crucial to understanding Euri's motive. Makeva Jenkins had a life insurance policy worth $500,000, a substantial sum that would have solved many financial problems. But when detectives examined the policy details, they found something that must have been devastating to Euri. He wasn't the beneficiary. Despite orchestrating his wife's murder for what he thought would be a massive payout, Euri Jenkins would never see a penny of that insurance money. He had killed his wife for nothing. As the investigation progressed, a web of conspiracy began to unravel. Detectives identified Dametri Dale as the middleman who had connected Euri Jenkins to shooter Joevan Joseph. They traced phone calls, followed money trails, and built a timeline that showed premeditation and planning. Each piece of evidence painted a clearer picture of a calculated murder-for-hire plot. But building the case would require the testimony of the very men who had participated in the crime, men whose credibility would become a central issue in the eventual trial. One by one, the conspirators were arrested. Dametri Dale and Joevan Joseph found themselves facing potential life sentences for their roles in Makeva's murder. But faced with spending the rest of their lives behind bars, both men made a calculation that would prove crucial to the prosecution's case. They agreed to testify against Euri Jenkins in exchange for plea deals. The very men who had helped orchestrate Makeva's death would now become the key witnesses in seeking justice for her murder. It was a devil's bargain that prosecutors knew they had to make. Nearly 5 years would pass between Makeva's murder and the beginning of Euri Jenkins's trial. COVID-19 had delayed court proceedings across the country, but for Makeva's family and friends, each passing day was another day without justice. The children she left behind grew older, learning to live without their mother, while their father sat in jail awaiting trial. The wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn. And finally, in 2022, Euri Jenkins would face a jury of his peers in a Palm Beach County courtroom. When Assistant State Attorney Richard Clausey rose to address the jury, he didn't mince words about the witnesses they were about to hear from. You don't have to like witnesses, and in fact, I highly doubt that you will, he told the jurors. He warned them that the men testifying had made plea deals to avoid life sentences, but argued that their testimony would reveal the truth about Makeva's murder. Using air quotes, he repeatedly referred to the beloved wife and the unknown shooter, his sarcasm making clear what he thought of Euri's version of events. When Dametri Dale took the stand, he admitted to lying in the past, but claimed he was now ready to tell the truth. It took a while for me to accept responsibility for my actions, and at the very least, the family of Makeva Jenkins deserved to know the truth, he testified. His testimony painted a picture of the conspiracy, though he claimed not to have witnessed the exchange of money and gun directly. However, he noticed that Joseph had acquired a silver-colored revolver, and he detailed how Euri had invited them back to the house after the planning session. Defense attorney Cyrus Tufanian faced an uphill battle. His strategy centered on attacking the credibility of the prosecution's star witnesses. He pointed out that both Dale and Joseph had lied repeatedly in the past, and were now testifying only because they had received plea deals to avoid life sentences. Were these the words of men seeking truth and justice, or were they simply saying whatever they needed to say to save themselves from spending the rest of their lives behind bars? It was a question that would weigh heavily on the jury's minds. As the trial continues, the fundamental questions remain as stark and troubling as they were on that June morning in 2017. How does a husband decide that his wife is worth more dead than alive? How does the promise to love and protect become a plan to kill? 3 children lost their mother that night, and they may lose their father to the justice system as well. The insurance money that motivated this murder was never collected, making Makeva's death not just a tragedy, but a senseless one. In the end, this case serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest danger comes not from strangers in the night, but from those who share our beds and our lives.